Hello, everyone. Forest Focus. It feels like 12 months ago all over again as Nottingham Forest go into the final games of the season, with each one feeling like it's now the game after a weekend when it all went against them with defeat to Spurs and wins for Luton and Everton. Joining me to discuss yesterday's loss and the big picture are, first of all, Reds fan Michael Temple. Temps, good to have you with us on a Monday as normal. You well?
Yeah, good, mate. Not liking the look of that league table, particularly this morning. And yeah, feel very different to how I felt 7 days ago. But Luton just won't disappear, will they?
No, that is the thing. We'll get on to them. Second guest today, a rare daytime appearance for our post-match regular Mark Sutherns. Mark, how are you doing?
I'm more philosophical this morning than I was post-match about it all, but still somewhat disappointed. And yes, Luton breathing down our necks is making us feel very uncomfortable, of course.
Well, good to have you with us of a morning, certainly. It'll be interesting to hear your take, because we heard it last night. I want to hear if it's mellows or not. Mellows probably not the right word. Third guest today, a man who absolutely bailed me out at the last minute. A hero on the pitch for Forest, a hero off the pitch for this podcast in Lewis McGugan. Lewis, how are you?
Yeah, good morning. Pleasure to be here. Glad I can help.
Well, you definitely have. You definitely have. Don't worry. Temps, kick us off just with general thoughts on what we witnessed yesterday, then, and we'll take it from there.
Just three distinctly different periods of the game. Start of the first half where we just couldn't buy any meaningful possession. Second half where we were just blunt and ineffective. But then that 25-minute period back end of the first half where it clicked, the game plan was apparent, chances were created, and we could have scored far more than we did. So disappointing that it only clicked for such a relatively short period in a game. When it did, we looked great. It was flowing. The front three were working. The attacking nature of Aina and Nico came to the fore. But for too long in the game, we were pinned. We couldn't retain it. We couldn't find a way to break through. And we couldn't make the best of Chris Wood, who, given his form now, I probably expected at least two from him in that game, given the chances that he had. So yeah, disappointment for me, because what we saw back end of the first half would have been enough to get something from the game had we sustained it.
Are we right to feel disappointed, Lewis? You think when how good Spurs are? I suppose when you're in the game at 1-1, you kind of get your hopes up. But what was your take on it?
Yeah, listen, I think if you look at it across the whole 90 plus minutes, I think that if you look at the start and how Spurs started, I think Sells makes a really good save from Brennan. If he scores that, we're then looking at a completely different kind of the way the game then kind of ravels on from there. I think we got back into the game. A good goal in the terms of the kind of way that when we've played our best. And that counter attack, that kind of front foot 1-2 very quick transition, and then after that, I think from that up until half time, I think we was very, very good, and I think there was a lot of positives from that. I think we're playing a Tottenham team that at the start of the season for the first couple of months it was like they've reinvented football. You know what I mean? And they was going to kind of win the league and stuff like that. So we have to understand that we're playing against a good team with very good individuals. And I know that you look at the drop-off in performance and drop-off in the second half, but also we've got to understand that we're playing against a very good team, a team that's trying to qualify for the Champions League at home. They're going to have a reaction. The first half, especially the end of the first half, you look at the two subs made at half-time, that tells you everything. The manager wasn't happy. They're going to react. They're good top Premiership players. So, listen, I think that when Nuno will look back at it and the team, yes, is there little things when we maybe could have done more, but sometimes you've got to understand that you're playing against a good team and good players, and sometimes that they're going to kind of come back on top, and you've got to weather that storm. And listen, and that's the important thing right now. I think what we can't do is get kind of too down from the highs of obviously Fulham. I think football in any level is down to moments. We can talk about tactical formations. We can talk about all these little things, but it's down to moments. And sometimes you need moments to go for you, and sometimes moments go against you. And you look at the Fulham game for prime example. We played really well, but in that time we scored 3 very good goals, and everything went in our way, and we got the momentum. The second half, they really come back on it. Yes, they got the goal. If you look at the Tete, I think Tete hit the crossbar. Willian had a lot of chances. They're the moments that went through us on that day, and we look at it, we come away 3-1. Brilliant. Sometimes that happens. If you look at the Fulham game, you looked at that half, if they'd have scored them 2 goals and you're looking 3-2, 3-3, we're not going to have that same kind of outlook of that game that we did. But again, they're the little moments in the game. And unfortunately, we can talk about, obviously, possibly Madison red card, possibly Wood's chance, which I think that he has to score. But they're the small moments, you know what I mean? Wood scores that at that time. I think, again, we're talking about a completely, probably different outcome.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get on to a couple of those key moments in a bit more depth and talk about the goals, obviously. Just sticking with the second half, the Spurs fan who we had on last week, Baker, kindly sent me a couple of charts, and one of them, Mark, shows how good Spurs are straight after half-time. If you look at where it says, for those who are listening, not watching, it's got a goals by 15-minute bracket, and Spurs have scored 17 goals in between 45 and 60 minutes. They've only conceded 4, and I've scanned this. I don't think any team's got a more prolific record at any point in the game, apart from Liverpool. Late in matches is ridiculous. 26 scores, 6 conceded. But generally, Spurs are an absolute flyer at the start of the second half. And we did see the quality, Mark, of the players who came on, and they really dictated midfield. And it was a difficult afternoon for Yates and Danilo, but they were up against some top players. Especially, I thought Bentancur was really good when he came on.
Yeah, I mean, that stat is a credit to Postecoglou's ability to turn things around for the second half, to notice where it's going wrong and put it right. And he did exactly that. And we made him look like a tactical genius, unfortunately, because he made 2 changes and that wrestled control back. And I think, yeah, they just took over. We sat back, we were very passive, and they got their goals, well taken goals, and their quality showed. But I don't. Yeah, I mean, this morning I'm more philosophical. As I said, I'm thinking, yes, Spurs are a better side than us. They've got ability all over the pitch. They got game changers all over the pitch. 2 attacking fullbacks who can score goals, a centre back who can knock a 30-yarder in. I mean, they were great, well taken goals, quality taken goals. But for me, it was disappointing in that it was kind of a free hit going into the game, in that I absolutely would have taken a point. But when we went 1-1 and when we had that chance to go in ahead, my expectations changed somewhat. They shifted, and unfortunately, that coincided with Spurs going up a gear and us somewhat surrendering too much possession and too much territory and getting punished. I think the one thing that just jarred me last night is, in the situation we're in, even in defeat, I want the opponent to go off the pitch and the opposing fans to go home thinking that we pushed them all the way. They had to fight to beat us, and I just didn't think we did that. On 67 minutes, Gibbs White and Wood came off, and that kind of signalled an acceptance, a resignation. And that for me was what was disappointing, and that's what really keyed into my emotions last night. I feel better about it this morning, but I still question that is a bit of a flag, in that we cannot, on 67 minutes, accept that. You know, if we play Man City at home and we're 2-0 down with 25 minutes to go, are we going to go, oh, damage limitation, let's take it? I don't think we're in a situation where we can do that. I think we've got to fight for every single point, for every single minute at the moment, because Luton will. And that was what was worrying me, and it still worries me this morning.
So I can see Temps nodding. I can see Lewis half shaking his head. So I'll go to Lewis. Do you not think did we not take our medicine there? You thought, what was it, a lack of belief that we could get into it, or was Spurs just too good to hold us at arm's length all game?
No, I think, like I said, I think on Mark's points, I think he makes great points. The only one I will touch on, I think we've got to look at, like he said, about, are we giving them a go? I think, listen, we're going to playing Tottenham away from home. They're fighting for the Champions League. They've made 2 subs at half time. So in terms of having a reaction and making them feel that they're in for a game, I think if we're looking for an example, that is a big example. Now, I think Gibbs White was injured. I think that was also a part of possibly why he was coming off. And understand that we want to go to always to the last minute of the game and try and fight for every point. But I think on the grand scheme of things, when you look at it from a whole, we've gone to a team that's flying high in the table, that are very good at home, and we've made a reaction and made 2 subs at half time. So obviously in their game plan, we've obviously ruffled their feathers. We've obviously made them make that change. And I understand from a coaching and a manager's point of view, when you're in that situation, to make 2 subs at half time, it's not going to plan. You know what I mean? And so I think we have to have that balance and understand that we are where we are. We want to stay in this league and want to fight for every game, but we've also got to understand sometimes the teams that we're playing against. And I think a large parts of it, we've done very well. And let's not get away, and let's not kind of now think all of a sudden we've lost. Yes, we've lost 3-1, but there's a lot of negatives in that game. There's probably not as many negatives as we think, and we've just got to keep that positive momentum and outlook into the next games coming.
I think my question mark punctuation was Temps just around the subs. Like Mark said, no problem with Gibbs White coming off. I just wanted to see Reina come on there probably and give Spurs something a bit more to think about at the top end of the pitch. That was my gripe. And we'll come on to a bit more about midfield. I thought Yates should have come off at half time, because as soon as he gets booked, he feels like a much more limited player, especially in that kind of match. That was my gripe with Nuno, because he did leave the wingers high, and he did leave Gibbs White high, maybe too high even. So he didn't completely surrender, but we just couldn't lay a glove on Spurs, and those subs were the things I questioned personally. What about you?
Well, look, Nuno picked the team that we'd asked him to pick, didn't he? So I think when everyone saw that an unchanged team sheet, there was a satisfaction from the support group that A, we were going to go there and attack, B, we were going to back the attacking players to do what they do, but also that defensive axis in midfield and the back four were going to be solid enough to give us half a chance. Yatesy was playing like a Sunday morning hacker. He must have kicked Madison 5 times in the first 35 minutes, could easily have had his yellow card a couple of instances before that, and seemed a bit preoccupied with that battle. I thought a couple of his niggling fouls in and around halfway, the middle third, were a bit unnecessary, really. So he wasted that. He didn't play it smartly enough, and he was on eggshells for the rest of the game. The subs, as Lewis said, that's about preservation. So as Mark mentioned, that was about preservation and recognising now the importance of Chris Wood and Morgan Gibbs-White in any game that we're going to have. Wood preserved from an energy perspective, and clearly Morgan has a muscle injury there that needs to recover from. The mistake he made, or the defensive mindset of bringing on Dominguez rather than Reina at that point, I agree completely. I thought Wood occupied defenders, showed what a threat he was, and they'd have breathed a sigh of relief when not only Origi comes on, who's a different type of threat, plays deeper, looks to get between the lines, gives the centre-halves a bit of a day off compared to Chris Wood. Morgs has come off for injury, and he's our most creative player. So whacking Dominguez in and changing the blend in centre mid is the end of the threat, and they had a pretty chill final 20 minutes. But I think that the 2 key points of the game were 2 misses. So if Sells doesn't pull off that save against Brennan, the pattern, the balance, the momentum is all with Spurs. And I think it's a very routine home Premier League win for them. We have our spell. All of a sudden, Chris Wood smashes the post when he could have dinked it in, and you'd back him in the form he's in to find the finish there. The game's completely different again. So yeah, the stats bear out that it was probably an easier afternoon for Spurs than we're probably thinking now. We made some negative substitutions, but our chance to impress ourselves upon the game was during that period at the back end of the first half. And Chris Wood, for all the brilliant things he's done in the last couple of months, missed a chance which would have given us a real fighting chance of getting something from the game.
What did he do wrong there, Lewis? Did he just absolutely smash it too hard and think he'd score because he's been in such form?
Yeah, it was a bit of a strange one, and the kind of more times you see it, you do kind of wonder what his thought process was. It was. It was a bit of a strange one, and like I said, from there, he has to score. I think even if you look before that, the Yates chance on the edge there, I think from a midfield player, I think you probably have to score that. So that's just my opinion as a midfield player. I think when you get a kind of a free shot inside the penalty area like that in the middle of the goal, I think you have to put that away. But again, we got the opportunity to have another go at it, and I think both of them will be sitting today and thinking they were big, huge moments in the game.
I've already thanked Jane for becoming a member. If not, thank you very much to Jane Harvey for signing up as a member, and also Tom Parry. Appreciate the support. We did see kind of the kind of blueprint for how we stay up as well, Mark, within the game, I think, because we got in behind Spurs quite a few times. Elanga again, he had obviously an assist. He had a cross where he could have picked Wood out early on. It was quite a difficult chance. And Hudson-Odoi got in good areas again. So I do feel positive in that sense that we are threatening big teams away from home. We just didn't do that last season. So that's something to take hope going to, when we go to Everton and Sheffield United and Burnley, they're just not as good. So if we can play with that positivity, it gives us optimism, I think, does it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think those three teams you name will leave as much space behind their fullbacks as Spurs do, because Spurs are always front foot, and particularly at home, and Porro and Udogie are very attacking fullbacks. I don't think Everton, Burnley and Sheffield United will push forward as much, depending on the game state and where they're at with their relegation situation. So there won't be perhaps as much space, but I don't doubt Elanga and Hudson-Odoi against their fullbacks. I think in those games, that is a blueprint for success, to get out wide, get those players isolating their fullbacks, or either draw other defenders in, create space for others. It's there. Hudson-Odoi was a little disappointing yesterday. What he did do, he did what Grealish does for City. He attracted defenders to him, created space for the cutback, and that's the kind of thing that he can do, as well as obviously beat his man. Elanga was impressive. I thought he was more direct yesterday than we've seen in a few games of late, and he took opportunities to break space and attack them, but there just wasn't enough of it in the second half. I think for me the problem is about belief. I believed we could get a point at least at halftime, and I thought the team went in at halftime believing they could as well, and it just worried me a little how quickly that belief just drained from us. It took two substitutions from Spurs and them taking control to just drain that from us, but they took their chances, right? We were 3-1 down, I get it. But with 23 minutes to go, I still don't think that game is gone. I still think Spurs, if we'd have made an attacking substitution, if we'd have been more positive and maybe given them a bit more to think about, we could have sneaked one and gone 3-2. And then, their defence, when put under pressure, didn't look that convincing to me, particularly in the full-back areas. And we still had Hudson-Odoi and Elanga on the pitch. So I just think it's disappointing the way we just let that belief drain from us, and how we didn't just go a little bit more front foot with the changes we made to react to the changes that Postecoglou made.
I think Van der Ven's excellent, by the way. I think he makes a real difference. His pace, I don't think he can play that high line without his pace. There was a couple of times where he bailed them out. So, I mean, we've got Murillo, so I can't be too greedy, but a player of Van der Ven's quality, I wouldn't turn my nose up at that, or Bentancur, as I said. I mean, did we... I'll get into some match specifics towards the end, but did we look a bit tired, Temps, do you think? Nico came off looking pretty gassed to me. 3 games in a week. I don't know if we should be looking that tired necessarily, but it's a long season and a draining one. Did we look a bit gassed by the end?
It's tiring defending against Spurs, right? Because they are very considered in central midfield, but they have such gas out wide that you need to be on your money at all time. They can hit long ranges, they can get in behind, they can run around the outside. I just think it's a tiring team to defend against, and they've always had that mentality, haven't they? Have been happy to win 5-4. That's been the Spurs hallmark for years and years and years. So yeah, we are, but it's more tiring to be where we are in the division than where they are in the division. You still think things go against you. You're invariably coming up against better teams and have to adapt your game plan to suit, where the top 6 can kind of just be themselves and do their thing regardless of who they're playing against. We've seen from the substitutions that we're having to manage players and wrap them up in cotton wool because we don't have backups of sufficient quality should they not be able to start the following fixture. So yeah, I get it. I get why we looked leggy and tired, and that's why you've got to take advantage of periods in the game where you're on top. Just on Murillo, I mean, there was a load of surprise from the commentators, wasn't there, when he banged one from his own half. At some point in his career, he's going to catch a goalie off his line and score an absolute wonder goal, because he's so alert to that. And the two times we've seen it this season, he hasn't been far off. It's not. There's an ability there. There's a vision there. There's just some untapped in-ground ability to even think about doing something like that in the Premier League, which is really, really exciting. But fundamentally, he scored no goal in the first half, where for all of the ability and that attacking intent and his range of passing and everything else, experience will give him the ability to deal with that situation slightly differently to what he did, because that put us under immediate pressure. And of course, if he did that 10 times again in the future, he'd leave it or affect it in a different way, or do something else that doesn't involve it going into his own net. So, yeah, a low moment for him there. But, yeah, I'm just fully expecting him to continue to be picked for every single game, despite his tender years.
Yeah, I mean, was he a bit unlucky there, Lewis? I'll ask you two questions about Murillo. Was he a bit unlucky, or should he have sorted his feet out better? And secondly, just on the shot from 70 yards, you loved a shot from, well, not 70 yards, but from distance. How much A, ability does it take, and how much B, balls, I guess, is it, for want of a better phrase, to take on something like that? Just talk us through Murillo on those areas of the game, if you would.
In terms of his attempt, listen, if it's easy, like Temp says, you have that vision. You try and catch people out, try and catch a keeper off guard, and sometimes keepers edge it, and the edge. And I think that sometimes you do that, and it just sets them back at probably 10 yards, and it just a bit weary of that. It allows you a bit more space. But I definitely think if he feels that here, he's got that in the locker, then yeah, if it's on, and yesterday, why not?
And the goal, should he have had his feet in, done better with his feet or not when it's smashed across like that?
I think they're the balls. Any kind of winger attacking player, that's the corridor that you always try and put the ball in. You put the ball in because it brings so much kind of pressure. The look at, yes, sort his feet out. It's coming at a quick pace. You can't leave it as a defender. You can't leave it. You can't leave it inside your 6-yard box in the middle of the goal, because if you leave it, centre forward comes in behind you, taps in, it looks even worse. So on that point, you have to try and deal with it. Sometimes you do it, and I'm sure we've all seen, you take a little swipe it. Sometimes you get lucky, it goes over the bar, it goes out, and you probably don't mean it to happen. And sometimes it goes in for an own goal. That's why, as attacking players, that's your corridor of uncertainty. That's why you're always trying to put it there, because it causes so many problems as defensive player, because they're running back to their goal. So, listen, I think it's one of them where there's not a lot more he can do. Some games you're going to get away with it. Some days you're not.
Just before we come on to our equaliser, which I'll ask Mark about, a quick word on our sponsors, the Trent Navigation. As ever, next game is at home, as we can't forget, because it's going to be absolutely nerve-jangling terror for the next few days building up to it. But if you want to relax before the match, Trent Navigation matchday experience upgraded and improved with Simon Fotheringham, who I'm sure lots of fans will know as the matchday host. So get down the Trent Navigation for the top quality pre-match build-up with food in the food court, rapid service in the bar, and quiz pre-match. And then after the game, of course, it is the Oasis and gig, 5:30 p.m. straight after Forest. No doubt beat Wolves, so that should be a good evening. Right, the equaliser for us, Mark. The quality of it you could address, and Wood's finish, and I'm sure you'd love a stat about how good Wood's finishing is. But also, did you see it coming? Or did you think we were going to do that or not?
Yeah, I thought Nico and Alanga were combining well down that side, and the doggy is always prone to let his man run, and he's got caught out a few times this season. I think Baker mentioned in his preview from a Spurs perspective that was a weakness, and we exploited it really well. I thought Nico had he had a very good first half, getting forward with Alanga combining, and that looked a threat. Even though Werner was probably their best route to getting at us, I thought Nico still got forward enough in that first half. So I did see us causing them problems. I think the way that the deflection helped Wood slightly, in that he peeled off his marker, but the finish was just assured through the legs of the defender. So perhaps he got a bit of luck with that finish that time that he didn't have when he smashed the post from 2 yards out. Yeah, it was a well taken goal, well worked goal, and it absolutely hit one of the Spurs fragilities, which was a doggy's defending down that side. So yeah, I was obviously delighted, and at that point I felt the pendulum swung our way, and we then had a period of possession where we kept the ball really well. Spurs were misplacing passes. The crowd was absolutely silent and, if not edgy, and the only voices you could hear were our supporters. And we didn't want the half-time whistle to come, did we? Because I felt that a second goal was perhaps in the offing, and it should have come when Wood had that chance. I think in Chris Wood's defence, he's trying to get height on it because he feels that Vicario is going to be defending low. If he'd have tried to slot it low, Foucault could have saved it. So I think he's trying to get height. And I guess he felt that the best way there was to add power rather than to try and chip it. And that's what happened. He lost accuracy as a result and it hit the post. So, yeah, it's one of those moments I just hope we don't look back on at the end of the season and think if that had gone in, what would that outcome have been?
Yeah, moments, as Lewis says. Right, the other big moment of the half that a lot of people picked up on, obviously, was Madison's jab into the gut of Ryan Yates and how Yatesy reacted to it. I'll ask, Mark's already discussed it, but Temps, what was your take on it?
I wasn't at the game. I watched the Sky Sports coverage, and Roy Keane, who obviously worked with Ryan Yates pretty closely and admired him during his period as O'Neill's assistant, said he was really disappointed how he went down. This is Roy Keane, right? The most extreme example of a man that wouldn't go down after being ran over. So yeah, for your hard man to be rolling around on the floor isn't a good look, because it was it was a Bruce Lee 1-inch punch, wasn't it, rather than any kind of Mike Tyson uppercut. But VAR has to see an act like that, intervene, and issue a red card. There's no two ways about it. I think if the ref is sent to the screen at that point, he gives a red card. It's a punch. Yes, it's off the back of an accumulation of Ryan Yates antagonising, chasing, hacking at Madison. But the sum total is he's punched him. So, yeah, red card for me. I think the manner in which the referee spoke to them both was, come on, lads, you two have just been messing about all afternoon. This is silly. You're going to get yourselves both into trouble. But he dealt with the accumulation of Yatesy's ankle biting with the yellow, and he gave Madison a pass. VAR intervenes there. It's a red card. We're back to the subjectivity and the human mistakes. Let's say 7 out of 10 video assistant referees would have referred that. This one didn't, and it gave us a disadvantage in the game. I'd have sent him packing.
I see the comments are pretty suitably divided on it, actually. So, yeah, what was your take, Lewis? How would you be feeling after that?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, I think we can all see that there was a punch, or there was that movement there. The way I look at it is, again, it just brings up VAR. I think that we all, as football fans, watch football every week, and especially on TV, and we sit here for 4, 5, 6, 7 minutes and they're debating decision, they're rewriting, they're forwarding it. And I think on that incident, you wouldn't really know that anything happened. It was just over very quickly. And I think that again brings, when we talk about VAR, is like kind of the incidents. Every incident has a different kind of protocol and outcome. And I think if you look at the Danilo incident in the second half, it was over. They looked at it a few times. It got kind of dragged out a lot longer than Madison's. It was like kind of Madison's happened. It was like, looked at it once. Commentators didn't really want to engage in it, didn't really want to kind of talk about it. And it was over very quickly, and the referee speaking to them, which is absolutely fine, like as Temp said, and having that come together, that's kind of before VAR, that was normal, the protocol. Listen, stop, you know what I mean? We've seen it, stop it, go there. But when you've now got VAR introduced, to then kind of have no real process to look at that, but then on the flip side, another incident, you're kind of mulling over it for 4, 5, 6 minutes. It's just, again, the complete contradiction and the up and down of VAR, really.
That was something we didn't really pick up on last night, Mark, around VAR. I mean, one thing I said, I think in our group chat at the time, was if that's Romero, he probably gets sent off. But because it's Madison, it feels like, oh, he's a soft number 10. No offense, Lewis. Then you'd probably let him get away with it. What do you think about
that? Yeah, I mean, for me, if he's closed the fist, if it's a punch, it's violent conduct. It's like the difference between you see players come together and they put their heads together, and they're not sent off for that. But if there's if you move your head back and you make contact, you're off, right? And it's the same kind of thing here. If he's just jabbed him with a flat hand, fair enough, get away with it. If he's clenched the fist and then jabbed, that's violent conduct. He's made the decision to clench the fist to harm an opponent. He should be off. Now, I don't think we could see clearly whether that was the case. it did look that way in real time to me. What disappointed me was we didn't get any form of replay or there was no suggestion that VAR were looking at it forensically like they did the Danilo challenge. And that, why not? Why did it not warrant that? I think it did warrant that. And I don't know whether that happened. I don't know if it was reviewed. And I didn't really like the way Sky just kind of batted it away as an inconsequential moment of the match, when actually it may not have been. Had he clenched the fist and struck Yates in the stomach, that's a red card. But it wasn't analysed in any kind of detail. And I don't know why that was. Don't know. Can't explain it.
I think other broadcasters said it was a red card. I saw a thing on Twitter with the international feed saying they thought he should have gone. I saw someone in the comments saying Match of the Day said he should have gone. I haven't watched Match of the Day, to be honest. One other thing on the incident, Temps, is Yates equally a little bit lucky that, he's making the VAR sign, which to me is, tantamount to waving a yellow card. It feels like the same sort of thing when you're on a yellow card already. Was that a little bit silly from him?
Yeah, that's the directive, isn't it? Anyone asking for a VAR replay should be shown a yellow card. So look, Yates was very lucky for me because there were 3 yellow card worthy challenges in that first half, and he was given, I think it was the 5th or 6th instance that he was given one for totting up. So he'll look back on that and just needs to channel that aggression, just be a bit smarter. You don't need to smash everyone every time you get within a yard of them in the middle third. Save your yellow card. If your job is to be that enforcer, and you've burned that in the first 5-10 minutes, it makes your game less impactful. So not Yates' finest hour for me. Missed the chance before the Wood rebound, was too aggressive in his pursuit of Madison. We just need him to channel it and get back to what he is, because he's been the first midfielder on the team sheet for a while now, because of his fitness, his endeavour, his organisation and his aggression. But just channel it. We don't need a first half red card at this point in the season, given how precarious it is and how willingly Luton have reacted to me writing them off 4 days ago by showing their fight once more. Just, fourth gear, Yatesy.
Yeah, that might get clipped up, that Luton writing off thing. They better go down now. We had 32 minutes and we haven't discussed the other Spurs goals in much depth. So I'm going to throw those at Lewis quickly from a coaching point of view. The second one, Van der Ven's strike. Great strike, but do we need to be getting out to him quicker there and not closing down the space much better?
Yeah, and I think if you look back at the goals, and I think the manager and the players when they debriefed the game, I think that was yesterday. It felt like a bit of a problem in terms of getting out. I think at the start, Basuma's hit one high over the bar, but again, they're getting out to it. I think Holberg had a shot which sells the great save in the second half, again not getting out. And I think if you looked at yesterday in particular, I think that would be a bit of a talking point, is the amount of time it took us to get out to apply pressure. And I think that if you look at the goal and kind of freeze it on when kind of Van der Ven when he's shooting, if you look at where Danilo, you look at where Yates are, they're the ones that are making that kind of yardage up to get out. But if you look behind him, we've got at the 2 centre halves, we've got Williams, we've got Woods kind of just right in front of the keeper, really low. So I think that if we can get out quicker, which then pushes, if the back line can push, which then pushes Yates and Danilo higher, then balls that are probably going to Son and on that area, they haven't got that time to have a touch and then pass it on. They're getting applied pressure, and if the pressure is really there, they're probably not even getting that ball in the first place. So I think if you, like I say, the nitpicking, if you look at it, but I think it happened 3 or 4 times, and I think you then take that into the goal. I think our kind of distances and are covering the ground in terms of the getting out there. I think we have to be a lot quicker to apply pressure, especially kind of on the edge of the box when in the centre of the goal.
And the third goal, Pat Brett says in the comments, it was a set piece routine. I can't remember where it came from, but they flood the box. It looks like they've got 4 queuing up to score. Should Hudson-Odoi be tracking his runner there, Lewis? Should Danilo and Yates be filling that space? What went so badly wrong there? 'Cause it looks a mess.
Yeah, it is. And I think if you look at it, the last little point again about them little moments, I think when the ball comes in, I'm not sure who's the first point of contact, but we just get a little flick, and that flick takes it into the path of Porro. And again, they're the little things that where the ball originally was going, we probably got the players in that space to defend it. That little flick at the front post takes it into the path of Porro. And to be fair, you've got hands up. It's a great finish. And I think you look at their 2 goals, they're just good finishers. They've had the opportunity, and I recall back again, Yates in the middle of the area where I think he's got to score. You're in the Premier League, and I think you get them opportunities. They're good finishers, and sometimes you have that chance, and there you go, 2-1, 3-1. The game's gone, and they're small details, but that's the quality that the Premiership has. And I think, again, us moving forward into what we want to do and what we want to become, we have to understand that when we get these chances, it's not, or hope we score, or hope they're chances that we have to put away. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to go into the clubs and go into the higher part of the league, because that's what them teams at the top, they have the players, the capability to do it.
Last point on the game, Mark, before we move on. I'm putting you on the spot here. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at any stats around Matt Sells and how much better he's actually been than Turner and Vlachodimos in terms of save percentage and XGI. So leave it to the eye test if you want. But some of the saves he made yesterday, I mean, I don't think we discussed who man of the match was, but was he the clear and obvious candidate for you?
Yeah, I can get the data before the end of the podcast, so I'll see what I can dig out. But yeah, there's no question to me. I said last night, every game now he's growing in stature, and it's clear that we're going into these final games with a goalkeeper we can trust in terms of his ability to stop shots, but also to have more of a presence in his area and be more secure with the ball at his feet. So the areas that were concerned with us when Matt Turner was in our goal, I think have somewhat been dispelled now by Sells' presence, and that's a huge positive. And I think if there was things to take out of yesterday's game, Matt Sells' form and the fact we can rely on him is certainly one of them, because I think he made 2 world-class saves in that game for me. I mean, the Son save was incredible, because that was low and with power, and I think he was going the other way and he had to shift his balance and palm it onto the post. I think that was a fantastic save. The first one from Brennan, more reactionary but equally impressive. So yeah, we've got a very, very good keeper in Matt Sells. There's no question. He's an experienced keeper. He was captain, as you said, at Strasbourg, so he has influence, he has an aura about him, and I feel a lot better with Sells in goal, and he could be a really crucial factor over this run-in now.
Yeah, good point. I think he might well be. Let's talking about the run-in then, the big picture, last 15 minutes or so, and a little bit of a conversation about Wolves. But just in general terms, you're feeling a lot less bullish than you were a week ago, or is the faith still strong?
Well, I've got us down to beat Wolves, so that'll restore my faith. If we can have a round of fixtures where Luton fall away a bit and we're able to progress, I just think we can bottle that home form, remind ourselves of what went right against Fulham and kick on again. So yeah, that's where my continued confidence comes from. I think we're going to win that game. I would have enjoyed a point. I think there was a route for us to get a point at Spurs. It didn't happen, but the only reason why we're miffed really is because Luton have pulled out a late winner against Bournemouth that I didn't necessarily expect. It's dragged us in there, but they're still not in any kind of run of form over the last 8, 9, 10 games. They've really struggled. So still confident, still think we're finishing 17th or above, although probably 17th if I'm being brutally honest. And I'll just add to the Sells thing, there are a couple of crossfield balls that he made with his laces into the stride of Nico Williams. They just demonstrated beyond anything we can pull out statistically, he's got an ability, attributes that just address everything that failed us in the first half of the season, because there were games where picking a different keeper would have made a real difference. We'll be left to wonder. Hopefully it doesn't matter what the difference would have been, what position we'd be in now if we didn't have those howlers before Christmas. And yeah, I hope he's the man that's here to stay for a little while.
Yeah. Yesterday was our first defeat in 4. And I tweeted on Saturday, like, not every result is literally going to go our way. So at some point, something was going to happen. And I'd be more worried if Luton go to City and get something. Obviously, Bournemouth are a form team, and that was a really good win for them. But yeah, I'm still pretty upbeat. It feels like this Wolves game's massive, though, Lewis. To me, if we win that, we're really well set. If we lose it, then I'll be absolutely terrified. But how are you feeling about it all?
Yeah, listen, I think it's it's going to keep going up and down for the next few weeks at least. And I think that's just where we are. It's still in our own hands. We look on paper and look at the fixtures. Will we want our fixture list ahead of Luton's? Yes. So again, that's in our favour. But again, I think we've just got to take each game as it comes and try and get the right result. If you look after Fulham and you look after the result there, completely different kind of outlook. You go the weekend, the teams around us get good results, it completely changes it. And I think that's just what it's going to be like because it's so close. But I think in terms of the concept, in terms of sometimes the players and looking at it from the team's point of view, I think if you look at Luton and their kind of outlook on it, they've got nothing to lose. They're going into games. Everyone's pretty much thinking they're going to be the third team that's going to go down with Sheffield United and Burnley. So when they're going into games, it's very much a different mindset. You look at probably Nottingham Forest, and you're looking from an outside perspective. If we end up going down, it's we've lost it. We've thrown it away. We've put ourselves in that danger. So when you're going into games, there's a lot less pressure on Luton. When they're going out there, they're not feeling. Most people think we're down already. So everything that they're trying to get or the performance they're having is a bonus. So you've got to look at kind of mindset sometimes going into different games. But I think the most important thing is you look ahead now to Wolves on Saturday. That's the most important. We can get a good result there. Again, we can do that. The others have to then match it up, and hopefully sooner or later they will fail. And I think that's the biggest thing. We've got to try and take all the kind of excitement and a little bit of feeling that Luton has. And I think if we're keeping them around us, keeping them something to think about every week, we've still got a chance, they're going to keep coming. And I think it's up to us now to bridge that gap, to make them feel, do you know what, it's out of sight now, it's 3-point gap, it's a 6-point gap with 3 games to go. That's what we've got to look at. We've got to take the steam out of them, and hopefully we do that. And then we can have a kind of a more peaceful end to the season. But like I said, I think the next 2-3 weeks are vitally important.
So what's Nuno saying to them this week then, Lewis? Because if he says to them this is just another game, do they think, oh, sod off, that's not true? Or should he say this is a big game and it's one we need to win? What's the message got to be from the manager?
Well, I think you're playing for Nottingham Forest in the Premier League. So every game's a big game. Like that's the reality of what it is. Yes, it's another game, but we can't. We also have to sit here and say, well, it's another game. We have to understand we're all human beings. It's not. There's a lot more pressure on it, but that's why we do it. That's why we're in that profession. That's why we get the accolades, and that's why we get the love that we get. Because sometimes when the pressure comes, we have to go and deliver, and the players will know that. The manager will know that this football club, we need to deliver, and they're under no illusion. So yes, all right, it is another game, but we can't also take away the fact that there's some pressure on it, and because that's a bit delusional and that's a bit kind of head in the clouds. So we have to understand the position that we're in, but we also got to understand that we're in control, and as long as we're in control, that's where we want to be. And now we've got to go and put the performance out like we did against Fulham at home, and like we did in parts yesterday. And we've got to keep being positive, take the goods and take the kind of attacking intent that we've shown. And I think the players will go out there and get the results that's needed.
What about in terms of early team selection then? Thoughts then, Mark? Because we spent a lot of time today saying, it wasn't Yates' best game, probably wasn't Danilo's best game, but then they were really good against Fulham at home. Do we need continuity, or do we need to freshen it up for you at this stage?
Well, it depends on the fatigue levels. If we came out of that game against Spurs and players were feeling it, perhaps he does need to freshen it up. I don't think he will, because I think I don't know. Inexplicably, Dominguez seems to have gone down the pecking order somewhat in Nuno's mind, and I think Yates and Danilo have done enough in the last home game when they showed against Fulham to hold their place against Wolves and suggest that's a pairing that can take us to 3 points. So I don't think he will change it. I'd like to think Dominguez will have a more increased role over these final games, because I think there's a quality player there who can be box to box and win tackles, and also, as we've seen, he can finish. Right? Had Yates' chance fallen to Dominguez, would Dominguez have made a better job of it? Probably, but I don't want to be opening a can of worms for people to criticise Ryan Yates either, because he did so well for us in that Fulham game. So we've got to remember he's got credit in the bank from that game. So I think he deserves to start with Danilo against Wolves. But I'd like to think Dominguez has a bit more of a role to play than we're seeing in recent games. I don't understand why he's been so marginalised as he has.
Any thoughts on that, Lewis, from a midfielder's point of view? Because Dominguez has done a good job. I know you're a big fan of Danilo, but Dominguez hasn't done anything particularly wrong, has he? I would say, on the pitch.
No, and that's football. And I said that right at the start of the kind of back when Steve left and a new manager was going to come in. I said that there'll be people that are playing a real pivotal role, and they'll kind of over a few weeks, a new manager come in, they'll probably be on the complete opposite, and you'll get players that haven't had a role and haven't really been in the team that come in and play a prominent role. And that's just football. That happens. And sometimes managers, day-to-day, managers come in and they see something different. They see the way they want to probably set up a team, and maybe he don't quite fit in that team or that shape that how he wants to go and about. There's no real thing that he's done anything majorly wrong, or that the manager thinks is that he's not a good player or he's a bad player overnight. I think sometimes managers want to set up in a certain way, and they've got to look at what they have available. And he just looks at it and thinks at this point in time, that's the personnel, what I think is best for this team going forward. And listen, it can. I've seen it happen. You could last 3 or 4 games, Dominguez comes in out of nowhere, plays a real pivotal role, keeps us up, and then we're not having this conversation that he's kind of been left out for the last 4 to 6 weeks. So, listen, I think that the manager is seeing these players day to day. There's also kind of other stuff that come into it, fitness and stuff like that, and he's got to pick the team and pick the kind of tactic what he feels is best to go and get that result. And unfortunately, in football, some players are going to miss out on that, and that's just the way it goes.
Just lastly then, attempts before we throw it to any other business, probably the fixtures then coming up, just get some early thoughts on those. I'll throw Palace in as well. I think I was saying last night they probably need one more win and one more draw, but they've got pretty tough games, starting with Liverpool away. Everton have got Chelsea away, which feels like a pretty easy fixture at the moment, frankly. And then Luton have got City away, as we've said. We know who we've got, and writing Sheffield United off now, I think. So, yeah, another one of those potentially pivotal weekends, I guess, and perhaps they'll all be that way. How are you feeling about it?
Yeah, we're 4 points from 16th, aren't we? And I don't think anyone's under any illusion that success from this point is just staying above the dotted line. It's as simple as that. So trying not to look at what goes on elsewhere, trying to focus on us, our mission to beat Wolves and see what Luton do. That's the battle I'm concerned about. Are we going to realistically claw back 4 points in the 6 games remaining with Brentford's running? Probably not. I think it's 17th or nothing for us. That's the be all and end all. That's all that matters. Just on team selection, I think that front four are inked in now. Any game we're going to go in and try and score, try and win, they're the front four to play. If Tyler, by some miracle, comes available back end of the season, I don't think he's going to get time to get back to any kind of form or fitness, which is going to surpass Chris Wood, given how dangerous he's looked in the past few weeks. The fullbacks, the keeper, are inked in. So the only debates we'll continue to have, hopefully, are the blend at centre half, the blend in centre mid. Because I just think we've found our winners in and around that. So yeah, of course we're going to have an eye on what goes on elsewhere. Of course, we're all super interested to see if Everton get pinged again. But it says against Luton, it's tighter than I would like. They've bit me on the backside already, but I still firmly believe we've got more than enough to stay ahead of them.
I still think Everton are in more trouble than everyone else does, but ostensibly it is us against Luton at the moment. And Omobamidele was pretty good yesterday as well. I should probably mention that. He's very consistent. He's not like he's always a steady 7, so I'll certainly take that at this stage of the season. Right, quick word for our second sponsor of this episode. It is Brewbacker, of course. If you've got any noise issues around your business, then get in touch with them, and the link for their website is in the description. Thanks for their support, and for Danny Baker, who owns them, who is a big Forest fan and season ticket holder as well. Right, any other business? Mark Sutherns, anything you want to add?
No, it's still in our hands, still very much in our hands. I think we can beat Wolves. we certainly should be going to a relegated Sheffield United and a relegated Burnley thinking we can get at least a point. And I think they will be relegated by the time we go there. I think looking at the fixtures, I think that Sheffield United are too far adrift now to still be in the hunt by the time we go to Bramall Lane. And I think Burnley is destined to be a nail biter. But I think from a Burnley perspective, they'll already be relegated by then on the final day. And Chelsea at home could well be the key fixture, right? I look at them and look at how inconsistent they are and what a soft underbelly they've got, and the fact that what will be their level of motivation with their penultimate fixture at the City Ground in front of a partisan City Ground crowd. I think that could be the key fixture, just like Arsenal was last time. If we get 3 points against Chelsea, maybe we can go to Burnley and it not to be in the balance. Maybe Greg could still get his Burnley party after all.
Maybe so. I think you're right. I think that is a big fixture, and I do fancy us to win that one. I just feel like we have to beat Wolves first. Lewis, anything from you before we depart?
No, nothing.
No, just saving this podcast by bailing me out at the last minute. I'll take that with no complaints at all. So thank you. Temps, anything from you before we go?
I was going to promote the cricket. So back in action, County Championship started. We're playing now, just out my window at Trent Bridge. And hopefully today is going to be the day that Nottingham should beat Essex to kick on and start the season in positive fashion. Although while we've been talking, I've seen Hasib, Hamid and Ben Duckett get clean bowled. So probably not. My Forest frustration might be compounded by what's going off at Trent Bridge. But yeah, if you're not a cricket fan and want to dip into it, we're back in action next week as well from Friday. And you can stream it for free on our YouTube if you just want to have a little look. So, yeah, cricket season meets football season this time of year, which means I have very, very little free time. But love my teams. And, yeah, it just lifts everybody's mood, doesn't it, when somebody from Nottingham wins something.
When's the next home game? On Friday?
Yeah, it's another county championship game at home from Friday. So maybe even in and around that Wolves game, folk can come and have a little look at Trent Bridge either side of that and see what they've been missing out on. I should mention as well, looking forward to seeing you boys on Thursday at the Nav.
Yes, that was going to be my thing. I might come down on Friday actually if you fancy a lunch engagement. It might be a day off. So yeah, I'll come down and watch some cricket hopefully. Tickets still on sale for the show at the Nav. 7:00 on Thursday. Lewis, Fletch. Temps is on the panel, Mikey's on the panel, so hopefully see you there. Emily and Pete will be there. It will be a good night, I promise. I've not checked the weather forecast, but Lewis can wear his golfing coat if it's a bit too cold, but I think we'll be all right. Right, we shall leave it there. Thanks for everyone's company. Good to have 300 people with us on the back of a defeat. Hopefully better times ahead, but in the meantime, Mark Sutherns, thank you very much.
Thank you, folks. See you next time.
Lewis McGugan, thank you very much.
No problem at all, anytime.
You're a good man. So are you, Mark. That makes it sound like you're not a good man. Michael Temple, you're a good man. Thank you very much.
Mate, is that stat right? Yates, 56 Premier League games, no goals.
Probably. We played. What have we played? 60 odd Premier League games. He's probably played. Yeah. The amount of chances he has, he should be able to get more, shouldn't he?
We're still singing "We'll be in the Trent if he scores," but we're all bone dry about Temps, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He'll get a couple. I mean, imagine if Ryan Yates gets the goal that keeps us up. What a sensation that would be. Right, an interesting note to end on. We'll leave it there. We'll be back Wednesday with Seb Hutchinson. Be in the evening because he's again bailed me out. He's commentating on England women over the next couple of days, but he'll give us his thoughts on the relegation battle. It'll be good to get a neutral perspective, and then we'll see you on Thursday for the match preview, and hopefully we'll see a few of you in the evening at the live show. But in the meantime, have a good day, and we shall see you soon.